All right, well, we're going to go ahead then and call this board briefing to order. And we've got a couple different lists or topics today, but we have the Doherty Center progress first on our topic list. So, Brooke, do you want to come up? And I don't know if you want to introduce everyone who's with you. If anyone's going to share the update, take it over. It's all yours.
Amazing. Thanks, guys.
Yeah,
Okay, so I'm gonna just give you these because we did low tech today.
perfect.
Happy about that. I was happy about that. But this is the latest and greatest of
Thank you.
what our branding team has been working on since
Ooh.
February. And we shared this with a handful of really amazing humans, including Betsy Johnson and Senator Weber and Jeff and Mary. So we are putting this in the hands of people who should know about this project, but we're also doing a fundraiser for our local.
So I hate to do this, but I need to ask you to go back so you can get a microphone and be near a microphone because the problem is we can hear you, but nobody
no one
online
else over there can.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. There's the people online are just seeing you and going,
What is she saying? Okay.
thank you.
So I'm gonna start again.
This is a first. We've never had someone
Now you're not on camera. That's
right. See, now they can't see you.
Goodness, you guys. Okay.
We're used to people sitting, so I hate
don't
to
like
take away
sitting.
from the movement. Right. Because I love to present that way too, where I can move. So I totally get you on that. But our system does not.
Okay. Well, we're Zoom happy today. So of course. So I was mentioning that I just passed our latest pitch deck, which is available on online format if anyone ever wants access to it. But I put hard copies in front of our commissioners and Rachel today, and this is our latest and greatest. We have worked with a branding and design agency and have created this as well as our website, which launched last week. And are starting to put it in the hands of very amazing humans like Betsy Johnson, Senator Weber, Jeff Shawns, Mary Jones, and have a very strong plan of continuing that outreach, but are also coordinating a public awareness at the local level called the Locals Catch. And everyone here, everyone anywhere is invited. I have our posters for the Zoom people to see. It's also on Eventbrite, and it's also on our website. So
What's the website address?
Thank you.
dorycenter.org.
That's a beautiful poster.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited. I mean, the graphics are stunning, but the landscape lends itself and the story is even better. So, yeah, so I wanted to reintroduce a couple of folks that most of you have met. I'm not sure if Commissioner Fournier has met our board members, and we have a new board member and maybe two new board members from the last time that everyone was in this room, and I wasn't a part of that conversation either. So today's goal is just to keep you guys in the know of what's happening, and we have a couple of questions regarding the Jensen property and the path forward. But we wanted to do that after introducing these guys and giving our updates. So with that, I'm going to we're going to see if I just give the mic to each of them and let them. Is that a possible thing?
See up there what everybody's seeing.
Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just quickly introduce their names and then pass the mic. So please meet our president of the board, Dave Larkins.
Hi, everybody.
Our treasurer of the board, Bob Gremmel. Our secretary of the board, Linda Larkins, and board member Mike Bradley. That represents everyone except for one other board member who was not able to join us today, Tim Nelson. So we're fully certified as of 2024 501c3 and are going forward. Okay, so I'm gonna give it to you.
Love the passing of the mic.
right? I know.
Passing of the
I
mic.
know, we don't normally have to, like, we don't
I don't
normally
need
have
to get
this
a
many
handheld
people
mic.
all
Well,
talking.
once again, I'm
Right.
Dave Larkins. I'm the president of the board, and we started this as a heritage committee with the Dory Association in 2000, it's either 2017 or 2018. But just in the hopes we could get something rolling, and it's exciting because it's happening. But ever since early on, we've had amazing support from the county commissioners that were seated then. Some of you were here, and along with Betsy Johnson at the time, Arnie Roblin, and they just pushed us ahead. Just keep going, it's going to work. And finally, with this last year, we were able to break away from the Dory Association and form our own 501c3, which was really important to the project. Two different missions, but it needs to move forward on its own, and it is. It's a really exciting project, and getting to this point is really exciting. So with that, I'm going to pass it along.
Well, I don't know what to add, but I'm Bob Grummel, and I've been involved since probably 2019. Dave brought me into the project and been working on several different sites before we ended up with the Tillamook County site next to the community center. And that was probably the biggest impetus of really moving the project forward in a much more positive way. We had donated property on the other side of the river that really was not appropriate. It was in a floodplain. We did studies on that. And with this new property, the Heritage Center will be a main focal point of the community. We'll be working we have been working in partnership, but we'll be working in more partnership with the community center and bringing the Dory story and also the history and boat awareness, working with all the fisheries and boat building and all those things. I'm also a boat builder. I've built four boats and a dory as well. So I'm very excited to be part of this. And I recently retired from Grummel Engineering. I passed it on to my nephew, and I'm becoming a full-time resident in Pacific City. So you'll see me there quite often.
Well, I'm Linda Larkins, and I'm not a boat builder, but I certainly have a passion for the project. The project started 10 years ago this month when Craig Wenrick, maybe some of you know that name or remember him, pulled up on the beach where I was and said, I was thinking maybe you'd like to look into maybe putting a museum project together for our town. He said, what do you think about that? And I said, well, it sounds like a really interesting project, challenging. And I'm retired, so I've got some time, sure. So that was 8 years ago. 2,500 hours later, here we are. It started as an idea on the beach. No, that's not true. It started with a dream that Paul Hanneman had. And as the years went by, Paul was losing steam, but he had collected so many historical articles from magazines, newspapers. He was passionate about it, and he really, really wanted a museum to be formed. He saved a lot of things. And he and Dave struck a real friendship in the last probably 8 years of his life. Dave would go fishing. Paul could go fishing because Sandy said, yes, if you take him fishing. Is that not true?
That's true.
Anyway, so yes, Paul definitely was an impetus. The other big thing for our museum was when we got land donated. It wasn't perfect, but without that cornerstone from John and Debbie Sermius, I don't know that we would have had much to go on except an idea and blue sky. So it was just incrementally through the years that things would come together. I've said this many times. It was like putting a white jigsaw puzzle together to find out, what do we need? Well, we go to the county. What do they want? Well, they want this. Well, how do we get it? Just step by step. We did pretty well through COVID, thanks to Zoom. But anyway, it's been an amazing journey, and right now I just feel like we're at chapter 2, you know, and chapter 1 is over with. It was worthwhile. We're so thankful for the property, and things are going to move forward. I just really feel it. I always felt that if we could just get this far, that the rest would fall into place, and I really believe that it will. Yes, Mike.
It would have been okay. Anyway, Mike Bradley, I'm a part-time resident here. I was born and raised in Columbia County, been coming here since I was young, actually, and then in the 80s, a young family, we came to Pacific City. 1990, Vic Lerna Jr. built me a small dory, probably the smallest dory that Vic Lerna Jr. ever built. But anyway, fished in the river, and 12, 15 years ago, we decided that, you know, we wanted to be here at least part-time. I'd like to be here a little more than that, but that's how things are. Anyway, so getting to know Dave, and Dave talked about this project. I told him, oh, I know who you need to talk to, Bob. So I'm kind of the guy that knows the guy that you need to talk to. That's been my role, and I was involved in the master interpretive plan. And then recently, well, last year came back when the 501 was in the formation process, and was brought onto this board, and I'm happy to be here. I think this is, you know, the dory, the heritage there is something that's very unique. I traveled in my work a lot. I spent a lot of time out of state, a little out of the country, and you see things somewhere that really catch your eye, and sometimes they're a lot closer to home than you believe. And I believe that the heritage of the dory fishing in Pacific City is unique, you know, as an economic thing for this community that it's been a cultural thing. It's brought people together, you know, and I think that going forward, this center will do that. I think it'll be not just for here, but for the coast and beyond. And, you know, there's an educational aspect. And I remember back in grade school taking field trips to certain things, and there's just a few that really stuck. And I think this is one that could do that. So.
I'm really good at forgetting people, but one of the people is sitting in this room that really pushed us along the way, and I can't thank her enough for it, and that's Rachel Haggerty.
Yes.
She's been there all the way with us.
Okay, so thanks for meeting our board. And I hope you guys have time to look at this at your leisure. I do want to bring attention to what Linda was talking about, which is somewhere in the middle. It's that pretty graphic about how far we've come and where we're at and where we need to go. And so thank you, Rachel. And because of you, I have this intimate experience with this new project. When I worked with Rachel on the Kiwanda Corridor project, the county decided to identify the Jensen site as the appropriate space for the Dory Center. And I think that's pivotal along with its individual formation as its own organization. And so we have a couple questions for the commissioners today about if you can see that we are really launch ready and we're really getting all the pieces of the white puzzle put together. The Jensen property is going to be actually a very successful and huge asset to us for securing larger capital grants. And so we want to talk about the land lease, and we want to talk about also the Kiwanda Corridor project and its phasing and conversations around infrastructure, access, cost sharing, timing, cost estimates, engineering details, all of it. So I think Mike had a much more appropriate or easy way of explaining it, but that's kind of the platform for our questions for you all today. Before we talk about it, I just do want to share that we're celebrating Tillamook County's Kiwanda Corridor project with this when we pitched this, and we're saying that because these two things are happening together, it's very much creating a better area for Pacific City to have an off-shoulder event for tourism to bring much of the values of the Kiwanis Corridor project south, in terms of getting people connected to the downtown and all of that. My physics a little scratchy, but you are all very intimately aware with that project, so I think I would like to just have the conversation now.
Okay, so if I understood you correctly, you're asking about timing and those kinds of things as it relates to the Jensen. So at this point, I will tell you, I have no clue of any answers. I'm looking at Rachel. Commissioners, do either of you want to kick off, or is Rachel or? I feel like it's Rachel. Thank you.
So at the risk of being redundant, no new information to share. We have communication every couple months. Brooke checks in on where we're at. Where we're at with the Kiwanis Corridor project is we've been putting all of our efforts into the Jensen property, specifically the Jensen intersection. So we've submitted several engineering grants. Nothing has come to fruition. Don't think there is any pending now. But or no, we do have the congressional appropriation that's moving forward. I don't know where that's going to go, but so we do still have pending asks out there. Short of that, we don't have anything else active, except for the Alder Street outfall by the pub. We're
Right.
working with OPRD, Public Works is involved in this, Consor as well, in what that solution should be. There's some timelines there. But that is it for the Kiwanis Corridor project that we're focused on. Aware of your efforts, super happy you're here. It's so great to see this progress. I know it's been a long time in the making. I'm aware of the need for the lease. The board, I shared with you earlier today, just as a refresher, the letter that the board affirmed for the Doryman's Heritage Center in October, affirming the commitment to do the lease and support for the overall project. And so where we are in that is it's just on my plate to do. And it's been since October, and everything else that I'm trying to juggle at this point, and I just haven't worked on that yet. I haven't had a chance to, in part because I don't think it's going to be a straightforward lease. There's some complexities around, the building. Are you going to own the building? Does the county own the building? The parking lot, the footprint is bigger. Is it going to be a fee lot? All of those things that are not new to you at all, we will need to work through, which adds more to the time that will need to go into the lease. And it just hasn't risen to the top of my priority, and my priorities are set by the board. But that's where we are on those. Did I miss any?
You're doing great.
Okay. Did I miss any other? Did you have any other questions I didn't hit?
Well, I do. Mike, can you talk about it a little bit better than I can about maybe sharing in costs and or talking about engineering?
Yeah, like the question I asked you. So I guess one of the things that comes to mind as we move forward, we've done fundraising mainly private. In the near future, we hope to be able to look for money to build on to keep this thing going. And one of the things when you do fundraising, whether it be grants or asking individuals or, private entities, is you have to have fundraising goals. So at some point, I feel like we need to be able to say, this is our next step, and this is what the anticipated costs are, and this is when we can move forward. So some of the things that, we'll be interacting with the county on will come into play as far as the answers or at least the ask that we have there. And that's basically it. Nothing specific, but we know there's, as you said, a lot of details around access, parking, infrastructure, and those things. So that was really my, how do we get to that point where we know what we're looking for to take our next steps?
Yeah, so I think the short answer there is we need capacity to work on that. And whether that continues to be me or we hire someone else to do that on behalf of the county, we have a project manager in the budget, which that person could work on this, but I need to have time to get that person on board to work on it. So I think at this point, it's just purely a capacity question.
Okay, thank you. And so obviously we haven't had time to digest all of this at this point, but I mean, do you know what your building itself is likely to cost? Do you have your beginning fundraising targets that you can and are working toward while we have time to find our capacity and get the rest of it, which is that site piece in order?
It's gonna be, it'll cost a lot. Um, Can you hear me? You know, the basic building structure is gonna be in the $10 million range.
Okay.
And the initial fundraising right now and for this next year is most of that will go to design of the structure. We don't have a full design team on board, and museums are designed from the inside out. Right now, we have a conceptual design, which the county assisted us with Nosa Norma on the site. And that gives an image, and there's some images in the plan of how the site would work. And after that design is complete, and during that design process, we'd be working closely with the county on how the parking works and the community center and the corridor project as well. But, you know, I think that our goal would be to this year, you know, raise enough money to get the design team together, and then there's probably another year in design. You know, if everything went wonderfully, we'd be ready to start construction in 2-3 years. You
Okay.
know.
Okay. No, and that's really helpful, at least from my perspective, because I think where we are at the county right now is we have a very valuable resource in Rachel, and we know that. And we have tasked her with a list of other very critical things that have to do with some county restructuring. And so right now, that's where her time is going. So I'm happy to hear that you all have some money to raise, some engineering to do, that I think it sounds like you can do before you get all the final answers from us, right? So this is a really great preliminary piece to go where you're kind of letting us know, hey, we really want to move this forward in the next year or 2 years to get ready to design, but we have a little bit of time as commissioners to kind of figure out how we're going to make that happen on our side, is kind of what I think I'm hearing. Is that?
That's exactly right.
100%. Yeah, we want to treat it as a well, it is a partnership.
Sure.
So what we're advertising it as is a partnership. And so being able to know where you're at and where your constraints and capacity is, and then being able to confidently tell our potential foundations and donors, if you put money here, it's going to get to go somewhere because
Sure.
these guys have a plan too. So that's what's really helpful for us.
Perfect. Okay, good. Commissioners, questions or comments? Sorry, I didn't mean to monopolize. I just wanted to
Yeah.
route while my head was doing things.
First of all, thank you for coming all in person. I appreciate that. I love the passing the mic. Since I am new, I guess I want to let you know where I'm coming from because I haven't had a chance. I think we can tell that the board historically and currently supports this project. So my history in Tillamook County, as I started working as, I'm not going to go all the way back, but my first job as a sheriff's deputy was as a Marine deputy, and they stuck me at Cape Kiwanda for a season, which was eye-opening. During that time, I met Craig Renwick and Susie, and I became close friends with Craig. So to hear his name come out of your mouth today is makes me very happy. Also in those days, Paul Hanneman was around and active and having those great parties that I was always invited to, even as a deputy. And I used to love going back into the back of his property where he had the boat building shed, the shop, and I was just fascinated by just the machines, the dowels, what would you call it, a lathe that was making the oars and all the history, and he loved to talk about it. And I always enjoyed meeting with Paul. So I'm glad to hear those two names pop up. I have a very special place in my heart for the Dory Men and the Dory Association, and the history of it. That summer, I wasn't such a hardcore police officer sighting. I would often tow them out when they got their truck stuck. So I had a relationship, a collaboration, looks like we're talking about today with them. I think, much like the Maritime Museum in Astoria, I think that this idea is fantastic. I think we are very lucky. I don't know if I was looking at my computer while you were speaking because my sister lives in Southern California, and I remember going to Newport Beach, and they have a dory land. They have some kind of dory history there. But it's really just a market and a co-op where they were buying seafood from people, not what we have here. So I don't even know where something like this exists anywhere in America.
So you'll see that in like page 1, 2. Arguably, it's one of the most unique fleets in the United States and northern continent.
Yeah.
It originated from New England, but a very different land and sea and a very different way of approaching the water.
Yeah, and I'm from New England, so I have a very, very big maritime history growing up a few miles from the ocean. But anyways, I just wanted to let you know where I was coming from as new commissioner. I completely support this collaboration. I'm super excited. I think this looks great. Can I keep this in my office?
Yeah. Yeah, you can.
Yes, why not?
You have to come though.
I am coming. I am planning on coming to this. It's on my calendar. But I just wanted you to know that about me is that my history of working for Tillamook County is tied with the Dory Fleet. So I'm just really grateful that you guys are doing all this hard work. And we do apologize. We aren't at capacity. She's currently acting as our current interim HR director as well.
Oh my gosh.
And so there's so much that Rachel's doing that we do have to prioritize that just to keep the doors open here. But trust us, this is something that I won't speak. Well, I will speak. I think we're all for this. So anyway, that's what I got.
I just want to throw one more thing in because you were talking
Can
about.
you hand her the microphone again?
Yep.
Just,
Yes, yep.
for people online, they're like,
Oh, okay.
just see this.
One more thing I'd just like to throw in there, because you were mentioning about the history of the dory fleet. This is the largest dory fleet. We're the oldest dory fleet. Most of the boats out there that are beach launching now came from designs that were created in Pacific City. The specific technologies for trailers for beach launching came from Pacific City. The way the motors can free tilt up, that technology came from Pacific City. So not only were we the largest, the oldest dory fleet, it's an amazing bunch of innovators in South Tillamook County that created this fleet over 100 years ago, and it's still going today. And I get kind of passionate about talking about it because I was at an age, I started when I was 13. A lot of at least the sons of the pioneers of the dory fleet were people I knew. And as I grew up, I started seeing them going away. If this story doesn't get told now, it's gone. You know, we're the group of us collectively here, we're it. So that's all I got to say. I had to throw my passion piece in.
That's
there.
good. And I agree with that. And I just want to add too, like even at this county, and I know of one example I can speak to right now is our county assessor, her dad, Richard Kuhn, is a dairy they're a dairy family. So it's intertwined in this county. It's just like dairy and timber, in my opinion. So anyway.
Welcome. It's so nice to have you back and to meet you also to the new board member, Mike Bradley. I'm delighted. This book is great. Thank you. And I'm delighted to hear about your progress and really glad that Brooke is on the job in this project. I also have my own history with dories. I had a friend whose dad was a dory fisherman, and so we'd go fishing with him. She and I would go fishing with him in his boat when we were young, and so that it was delightful when Pacific City was really still just a fishing town, and I'm fascinated by the history of dory fishing in Pacific City. I was amazed when I heard, maybe from Sally Rizzle, maybe in her book, I can't remember where I heard it, that the river used to be navigable by big ships, and that as the silt filled in the river, it became too shallow for the fleet, and then the design came out of that. And I could be misspeaking, but my point is that it's fascinating and it's specific to our area, and it's an important part of our culture. And so I think we're not again speaking for Aaron, but I think we're all excited about this project, and I think there's all kinds of opportunity for partnership, and we're not ready to flesh that out, but I hope that you hear us saying we'll be excited to have the conversation when moving forward.
Perfect, thank you. Yeah, so I share my colleagues' sentiments. I don't have a great Pacific City dory story, sorry. My husband, right? Well, my husband's a fisherman, but he's got a jet sled. We go out of Tillamook Bay. So what can I say? But I think what would be helpful, it might be for you all to sketch out your timeline. Maybe you have that. I didn't see it in materials quickly in my glancing through, so that we understand sort of in order to not stop you or slow you down, what do you need from us and when? I can't promise that we can absolutely meet what timeline you give us, but I think it's a great jumping off point for us to further this conversation with our capacity and pieces at the county to say, how do we do this? How do we make sure we're not the reason that the Heritage Center is slowed down, right? Because none of us want to see that, and we'll have to just sort of figure out where our resources fit in there and how we do it. So, but that will be helpful. Okay, great. Other questions for us or other comments? No. Well, we are all very excited about what you guys are doing. The materials look amazing. We'll look forward to getting a timeline, and then we'll work with Rachel on what does that look like? How do we make sure we're all moving forward together?
Perfect.
Sound
Come
good?
to the locals catch, September 12th.
I know, I gotta check my calendar.
Do it.
Thank you.
All
for
right,
being
thank
here.
you guys. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate it.
Can I ask you, sir, a quick question? When you were in the boat shop at Paul's, down below, did you go into the telephone booth
No, I
that
didn't.
he made? And that's where he conducted his legislative business.
Oh, really? I did not
Yes.
know he did not share
I wanted
that
to
with
keep
me.
it for our museum.
That's fun.
He did not share that with me. That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Paul was an amazing character.
was a kid.
Yes, he was wonderful.
All those checks were three-sided too. None of them had backs on.
That's exactly right.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys.
Everybody did?
Yes, we did. Thank you.
That was, I mean, if you need this I really am gonna put him
We're
on.
gonna sell for
Or you
$10
can buy
at
one
the-
at
at
the-
the-
Oh.
I'll do that. I'll do that.
No.
What did the ethics commission say? It's
I don't know.
$10. I
I'll
think
have to-
you're under the
I think I'll
limit.
just
Very
give them
put that.
$10.
Thank you.
I'll give you the $10 at the event. It's like I bought the T-shirt.
Right?
I'm not playing that game.
I know, I bought the t-shirt. too. Okay. All right, we're gonna move on to the second topic, which is our courthouse space needs assessment update. And I have Mitch Hine and Lori Uppenrath from DLR on my list. And are they gonna kick off, or are you, Rachel?
I am going to kick off.
You're gonna kick us off. Thank you.
Completely different topic than we just talked about, although engineering is involved. So that's great timing for them to be on, listening to that other project. So, as you know, last December, the county hired DLR Group to conduct a courthouse space needs assessment to facilitate finding solutions to solve issues around courthouse security, space, ADA, seismic concerns that we've been wrestling with for decades. To date, DLR has interviewed, as part of the assessment, interviewed all the courthouse departments, developed space lists, which are the requests of the departments, and then a little bit of paring down so there's no duplication or extraneous lists, but largely meeting the department's requests. Reviewing the 22 seismic report prepared by KPFF and they developed options and recommendations. During the July 23rd board briefing, DLR came to the briefing and presented the courthouse space needs assessment summary, which was a list of the space requests, options, and recommendations. The most notable recommendation that they identified was that to meet all of the needs in the courthouse for county and circuit court, we needed an additional 13,000 square feet, which was identified in the form of an annex. So whether that's on-site, off-site, buying another building reno, it was just left open. After a robust discussion at the briefing, the board provided guidance to DLR to proceed with developing sample courthouse renovation layouts for 2 of the options and a new option. So there were 5 options presented. The board wanted to have DLR proceed with option 4 and 5, and they added new option 6. So option 4, and all this is in the spreadsheet that we'll do a screen share here in a second, but option 4 included these departments moving to an annex. The Board of Commissioners office in the meeting room, legal, emergency management, HR, treasurer, assessor, tax collector, and veterans. Option 5 has these departments going to an annex. Board of Commissioners office and meeting room, legal, emergency management, human resources, treasurer, and clerk. Option 6 has all public-facing departments that are in the courthouse going to an annex. So that is BOC, legal, emergency management, HR, treasurer, clerk, assessor, and veterans. As I stated in the last meeting, and it's still accurate today, all of these concepts are very high level. There are countless questions and details that we need to proceed in further scoping and discussion before we get anywhere in any kind of a final decision. The purpose of this assessment is to develop a long-term and phased vision that provides adequate space and security for acute and future needs. It identifies the best suite of departments that work together regularly that should be relocated to an annex to provide additional space in the courthouse for court purposes primarily. It creates draft sample layouts of how departments may be arranged in the courthouse. And I want to pause there and just reiterate that these are sample layouts. The exercise that DLR did in this assessment for the layouts that were shown to you in your packet and shared with leadership team is an example of what it could look like. It's not implying that that is what it should be. It's not implying that it's set in stone, but it's one of probably 100 different layouts in option 4, 5, and 6 that could exist. Another thing with the assessment, identifying rough order of magnitude cost estimates. You saw some of those at the last meeting. And just ensuring that we have a strategy that can be in a phased implementation as funding available. Because as you can see from the numbers, we don't have $32 million today to run and implement all of this tomorrow. So we need to be thinking about how, if we are going to do any of these strategies, how we can implement that over time in a solvent manner. So today, the focus of today's meeting is to share the updated information that the board requested DLR proceed with out of the last meeting. The board can then choose to offer any initial opinions on what they've observed thus far, or they can forego any commentary. I don't recommend deliberating at this time on what a preferred option would be, given the timing of when this information was shared and if there hasn't been any other input from the organization and the leadership team. If I could provide some additional recommendations for next steps, I would recommend that the leadership team, who again received this information yesterday along with you, have about a week leading up to next Wednesday's meeting to reach out to commissioners or me to ask any clarifying questions. And if there are concerns and if there are any concerns, that those be shared by email so I can gather them and provide them to you all in a packet and share them with you next week. During the board meeting next week, not the briefing, I would recommend doing this at a board meeting because this may be the final meeting where you're discussing this now. The board would deliberate on what preferred option to proceed with and select that option. An additional recommendation that is new is, given that these are sample layouts, whatever one you pick, it's, I would say, almost 100% certain that won't be the final layout. Given that, does it make sense to have DLR work with their cost estimator to do a detailed cost estimate, which is what is in the scope? I don't know if there is any value in doing that at this point because of the timing of when this would be implemented and the inevitable change in scope. So I would recommend that following that at the next meeting, the board, if they're ready to do so, select a preferred option, and then we conclude this assessment, have DLR wrap up this report with the preferred option in it, and then the board can decide on how we want to proceed with implementing, if we're going to pursue that now or later. So as I mentioned, the leadership team and the board received the packet yesterday. It included a spreadsheet. We'll do a screen share here on that has the option 4, 5, and 6, advantages, disadvantages, some of the notes that were in one of the white papers I shared last week, and 4 sets of floor plans. So the first floor plan has circuit court footprint and a county footprint. And the purpose of that is, again, to depict that we can fit generally what we need to in the courthouse, provided that certain departments move to an annex. And then beyond that, there's 3 sample layouts for options 4, 5, and 6 to give you a depiction of what it could look like. In going through the spreadsheet after I sent it out, there were a few minor tweaks and clarifications that I've made in red that I'll point out as we go along on the spreadsheet just for clarification, but nothing notable really to the discussion. So that is where we are. Any questions on where we've been, where we're going before I turn it over to Mitch?
Commissioners? Nope. No, please proceed.
Hey, Mitch, are you ready for a screen share?
Sure. That's a pretty thorough preamble, so I can share some of the methodology we use to think through how we got here. So kind of how we think through doing test fits at this phase is, first we're doing our space list, and in a new construction scenario, we would take that space list, our interviews from your departments, and we would design spaces that meet all of those needs. In a renovation, we need to kind of balance those space needs with an existing building. So the first thing we realize is existing building, 45,000 square feet, new space needs 58. So that's the 13,000 surplus. And so last time we met, we were talking about which of those departments would fit in the courthouse and which could be co-located somewhere else. The other thing we talked about was the idea of a full renovation versus a light renovation. It impacts cost, but it also impacts our ability to fit all of those needs within existing parameters. If we want to maintain more walls and impact the building less, there needs to be more flexibility with how we're fitting some of those needs in here. So that's why we're going to talk through some of the requested departmental square footages versus what is proposed. So that's, what we had in our space list versus what can easily be fit within the idea of a light renovation. So first is which of those departments. Second is that idea of using a light renovation to fit spaces within the existing courthouse. So from a methodology standpoint, what we want to do is first figure out court circulation, separate out public from secure staff. So that impacts how we think about the court functionality circulating on the first floor, how a sally port might be introduced on the east side, and how that interacts with the circulation to those court spaces and where the court spaces might want to go within the building. That is having courtrooms on the first floor so that you don't have adults in custody circulating up staircases. The other thing that we do first is identify all the stuff that doesn't need to move. So if a space is located adequately and or has been renovated recently, then we're not going to touch it. So we'll go through example 4. So example 4, what stays put. What stays put in example 4 is all of the lobby circulation space. So as we're saying, like, we're not touching circulation. Let's leave that alone. Information services in the basement, that stays put. And the juvenile and district attorney upstairs also, keeping them where they're at, but in the district attorney's sense, they're expanding into the justice space. Overall, what we're keeping in this scheme is the clerk. So clerk expands into where the existing assessor, veterans, and treasurer space is. And then all the blue cells that we've highlighted here, these are all what we've identified in this scheme could be co-located somewhere else. So in this idea, we can go down to the pros and cons of this one first. And then as we go through the rest of them, this will be a good kind of counterpoint to it. So in this scheme, advantages, first thing, circulation. So that's our first step, making sure that we're separating out public staff circulation. So this version has that. Tax collector co-located with treasurer. So looking at co-location benefits. All county need departments met, red because impacts to court, which is the disadvantage in this one. The identified space is about 6,000 square feet higher than what's afforded in this scheme. And the way that the clerk fits into this particular scheme, again, as we caveated, not a design, very high level. the clerk is split up between 2 floors. There's a little bit of clerk on the first floor, most of it in the basement on this one. And so that differential of what can fit, like when we say the court is short about 6,000, that differential is what's, beginning to be impacted by that idea of that light renovation. We're trying to make compromises to fit everything in here. In a later scheme, you'll see how, in order to meet that full need, what else would need to change. Option 5 is almost identical to this. The difference is that the clerk leaves, and we've swapped out the assessor and tax collector and veterans instead. And so in this scheme, everything else is identical. What's staying, what's not touched, and then we just swap out the clerk for basement, or for the moves to basement, assessor and tax collector and the veterans. So both of those departments are moving into the basement in this scheme. From a pro and con list, this is the same. Tax collector disadvantage on this one, I think notable. Tax collector not co-located with treasurer. Annex costs, renovation of courthouse costs, the same between these two. We're largely balancing the amount of space that's being co-located elsewhere, very similar. Okay, so now for a difference is option 6. Option 6, what we identified in our last meeting was, what if we took all of that county stuff and co-located in that annex? So in this one, all of that green, oh, thank you. All of that green text at the bottom here, all of those green cells, those are all of the proposed co-located county departments. And what this does is it allows more elbow room for the court to now expand out into the existing courthouse space. So the circuit court in this one notably uses that extra 6,000 square feet. In those first two, we were showing jury assembly and grand jury sharing a space. So now all of DA is located upstairs on this one. The other caveat with this is it pushes so much out of the courthouse that it makes the annex need significantly higher. So overall, there's still the same renovation costs generally at this level for the courthouse. Those are kind of the same. But then we can say there's more square footage going into an annex, so there's going to be more cost associated with whatever that future annex is. So overall, the more that you're moving out, the more that's the main disadvantage here. So we term this as most expensive. So that's a broad picture of impacts of the way spaces fit into existing buildings. The recommendation for option 4 comes from us trying to just balance all of the needs. And we think that option 4 does this the best, where we're trying to limit maximize utilizing the existing infrastructure. That means fit the most stuff you can inside the courthouse, and minimize how much you need to provide extra for outside in a future annex. So this produces the best kind of balance between all of those departments. And I think overall that's kind of the painting the picture for your consideration. And the next step, that kind of feedback we're looking for, is agreement on which of these schemes to memorialize in our report, to say, yep, this is the recommended one to move forward with. So for the next phase of planning would be, figuring out what that annex looks like and how the planning inside of that works out. To do that, you would need to identify exactly which departments are going into that. Rachel, anything else? Did I miss any pieces on here?
I don't think so. I think, and I briefed the board in detail on this spreadsheet before the meeting as well, individually. And so there's some other notes that are in the paper, but I don't think we necessarily need to go through them in the meeting. But they are there just so they don't get lost as we're thinking about things. And, certain definitions. The text in red is where I had corrections. after I'd sent it out.
Thank you. So commissioners, given that we are not deliberating on this today exactly, are there questions or comments that we want to provide so that we're prepared for deliberations next Wednesday at our board meeting itself?
And if that's how you want to proceed with next Wednesday.
And is that what we want to do? Yeah, does what Rachel laid out. So let's start there. Does what Rachel laid out make sense in terms of we all have the opportunity to hear from directors, but that Rachel also will hear from directors so that she can put all those comments together in case we don't all hear the same comments from all the same directors. Rachel will have that to share with us at the Wednesday meeting, but we certainly have a week to talk with people and get feedback. And then to look at that Wednesday decision point.
Yes, and I am already hearing from people because, as you said, the leadership team got this yesterday and people are reacting to it and have questions and some concerns. And so I like the idea that other departments can reach out to your liaison with your questions or reach out directly to Rachel with your questions, and she's gonna gather questions, eliminate the redundancies, etc. So yes, let's figure out how to move forward with talking about concerns. But the other thing I wanted to say really clearly is that the changes, it seems to me like people are mostly reacting to the changes on this document, option 4, 5, and 6, and also I am also reacting to the changes on that document because some of the things that are proposed here, I don't see us doing these things. And so I talked to Rachel about this earlier today and said, hey, wait a minute, why would we do that? And for example, here's just a good example, moving Justice Court to our offices and to this and to the circuit courtroom upstairs. That doesn't make any sense to me at all. I don't know why we would do that. And so my point with that is I could go point by point, but I don't need to because the point with that is really that in my mind, that part of these are just some possibilities. So if we choose an option, we're not choosing those. We're not choosing what actually happens. We're choosing which departments are moving. And I think we even need more information about that. For example, we heard last time from the treasurer that it could be that veteran services would be better served here because some of the people they serve come on public transportation. So I think we need more information about that. Like, would we be creating hardship for veterans if we ask them to move someplace else? So I think we need a little more information about that. But basically, what I want to reassure people about is that to Rachel's point earlier, like what's super useful to me is that the space assessment identified that we need an additional 13,000 square feet, and moving forward, in order to start taking action, we need to determine which departments would move. So that's I think I'll stop there. And also, I'm very interested in what Commissioner Fournier has to say because it was his comments that spurred the option 6, and so I'm interested in your perspective.
Sure. I really appreciate you kind of clarifying that as well because I'm sitting here and option 6, I appreciate them doing it. It's scary in the cost, but I also think it's important for us to recognize a lot of this is being driven by circuit court needing to expand. And I'm also concerned that I don't agree with some of this layout. It doesn't feel very feng shui. It doesn't feel like it.
Feng shui.
Yeah, it just doesn't
It's gonna
feel.
go in the paper.
It doesn't have a good flow to it.
Courthouse
And
solution.
that might be because we've been here for so long that we're used to some of the ways things work. But obviously, I don't agree with the clerk having 2 floors. I think that's awkward. I don't think that would happen. And so again, I think that's the important part is I'm wondering, and I don't know, when we talked, I didn't say this, but like I think there's other options that we don't even need to decide on yet. For instance, if we were to build an annex or find a building that's appropriate, is there land that we could put another structure on there to make up for option 6, something else? So I think the important thing is identifying which ones are staying. To me, that makes more sense of which ones are staying here. And then the other ones we're gonna figure out, because the other unknown to me is, and Sean mentioned this last time, and she's right about, we have surveyors, and DCD, and in another building that we're paying rent on. Now, as part of the scenario future, maybe that we're using that rent money to finance purchasing another building. Real estate's coming down. A lot of commercial places are opening up. I'm afraid that some of and I'm getting feedback too from my departments, the ones that I liaison with. So I guess I want to keep that information coming, but put everybody's nerves at ease and say, this is not what we're doing. And that's why we're not voting on it. And we'll see how we feel about it next week. But I think maybe redefining what it is we're doing next week is important to me, because I am fine with deciding. I think it's a great exercise for us to decide which, and I think this part is accurate. I think these departments that are staying in the courthouse makes the most sense for the courthouse. I wish I could get some money out of circuit court and DOJ or ODGA or whatever, and that might be something in the future. Again, that might pop up. There has been legislation that was to do that, and maybe that's something we would push in the next 2 sessions. But so yeah, I'll be honest. I was speaking to Christy today. I'm not sure if they want to be in the same location as far as front facing. I was just trying to think of one of the things that came up that were her concerns, which were my concerns, were it would be nice to have more ADA accessibility, easily accessible, not having to go in the back door. So I think we all agree that moving those ones somewhere that's better. And it might be that they all move. Maybe that is an option, except for the ones that we designate here. The assessor's office, tax collector, they want to drive through so bad. They want to drive through, and they said it would be so amazing to have a drive through. I just think that's funny, but that's really a good point for them to serve the public. Part of this move, and I mentioned this to Rachel to quote one of our consultants, is I want every department to feel like they're winning. Like I feel like I want this to be a win for every department. Somehow, I think we can find that. It won't be everything they want or everything we want, but I really want to make sure that we're thoughtful about it. I think this is great work. I don't want to just keep droning on, I'm sorry, but I do appreciate that you're also agreeing that maybe this is not necessarily anything like we're going to do, but maybe this is. Maybe the departments identified that are staying is at least, and even that's a huge decision at this point.
Couple things to add. In the notes, just to highlight, because ADA came up, every option has an ADA option, and it's contemplated to be, now that we have one point of entry for the public is the southwest steps. So every option has ADA resolved at the courthouse. Also, just to be clear on the process, when we would get into design, is we would have extensive, because what is missing from here, which is what everybody's reacting to, which is expected, is the operations and why didn't it have any input. And it's because it's at such a high level. When we get to what the actual layout is going to be, we would have extensive design charrettes. We had so many meetings with the affected departments when we were looking at the South Lawn Annex, and we would do that here. And we would tease out those operations, so it was a win for everybody. So just to be clear that will happen if and when we remodel the courthouse.
I just think it's important for us to articulate that what
Yeah.
we're doing here. So, yeah. Madam Chair.
I think you all said it all. No, I agree. I think it is important to recognize that this is a very high level puzzle that we're doing, right? I mean, this is like, so here's the shape of the puzzle. It's the shape of a courthouse. And here are all the pieces that have to fit in it. Here's one way they could go, but the pieces are all the same shape. So you're like, never mind, take them out, put them in a different way. And I think that's the next part of the exercise, right? But we can't get to that part of the exercise without doing this part first. So I know it does create angst. I know that people feel like, wait a minute, I don't like where I've been placed. I don't like the idea that I'm leaving or not leaving or those pieces. But this is just high level 1 for sure. So in terms of the process, we'll take this next week to let people digest, to think about, to kind of bring forth comments they have. If department heads are listening, if you just want to talk with your liaison, fine, that's totally cool, but recognize that liaisons and commissioners don't get to sit down and talk together except in our public meeting. So they're then waiting for them in the public meeting to bring that forward. We would prefer to have comments go to your liaison, but also go directly to Rachel so we can have a document that has them all so that we're all sharing the same information for a decision-making step that sounds like it will be next Wednesday.
And
Okay.
I will, there's a lot of leaders not here today, so I'll send
Yes.
an email out this afternoon or
Yes,
tomorrow
that'll be-
morning. Yeah.
More communication for
Mhm.
sure.
And for additional clarity, the decision-making may just be what Commissioner Fournier said. It may just be, we've decided that all of the justice departments are staying here. And we're leaning toward these departments moving out, if anybody moves out. And so, people don't have to panic about the decision, because the decision is just conceptual. And I suggested today that I don't think we need a detailed cost analysis from DLR as a next step, because there's no way we can afford it anyway. So it's like we're so far from being able to pay for any of these proposed changes that we're years from that, if at all. And so I don't know how it would benefit us to have those
Well,
prices.
also, like you said, we don't know what the puzzle pieces are gonna be. So whatever we get to be shaken up and everything else, so.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think what we'll be deciding is what is the next step,
Yeah.
right? Because I think that's what we're not 100% sure sitting here today. But yeah, agreed. I mean, and I think that is a huge realization, or right, just thing to say out loud is that we're talking about a courthouse reno of somewhere around 27 to 32 million dollars. That's going to be a multi-year, multi-phase process. And also just to recognize that when we're talking about the square footage needed by departments, everybody's doing their job with what they have right now. We have a few very acute issues where departments are like, I need to hire a person. I literally don't have a place to put them. So we have some that are very much like right now, this is a problem. And we have some where this is just like, this is the space we should have to do our job well. And so that's all going to play into the phasing of how this happens, I'm guessing, since we don't have 27 to 32 million dollars just sitting here in our hot little hand. So this is all work we need to do, but it isn't immediate. I think that's also important for people to realize.
And speak to the finances, it feels very odd to even be looking at those numbers, knowing that the county is really in difficult financial straits. And to be frank, my thought on the subject currently is, if there's any way we could pull off an annex, we should start there. And if we end up leaving, we need to figure out, we have a lot of nice usable space here in the courtroom, and we need to figure out how to move people to take the best advantage of the space we have apart from expensive renovations. I think there's, this room is beautiful and new-ish, newly fixed up. The new courtroom upstairs is fabulous. There's a lot of really great usable space in the courthouse that doesn't need to be renovated. So in my mind, like, this is a great exercise, and the next phase or some near future phase will be, but what can we really afford? So we'll work on a price, a price plan.
I think, yeah, I agree.
Okay. Rachel, what else do you need from us in life? in this?
I think I'm just curious if you need Mitch and Lori to attend next week's board meeting, and what level of, I gave an in-depth background at the last meeting. We've heard it a gazillion times. What level of information do you want to hear at the next meeting? Other than the obvious, sharing comments and final recommendations and next steps, but what pre-stuff do you want to hear, knowing that it's at the board meeting?
Yeah, I would think because it's at the board meeting and because that will be the first time that many people in the public, if they are watching our televised or picking it up later, the context is gonna be important, so although we've all heard it, it probably, since it is the first televised version, is a good idea to have that background.
Happy to do it. Sorry you have to hear it again.
Oh, and I-
I'm there for questions that might,
Yeah.
that we might.
But let me ask you this, do we really think that we need, the next step in the scope of the DLR work was the detailed cost analysis? And if we're asking DLR to prepare that for us, then we need to vote on it, so we're directing them to one of these. But if we don't think we need the detailed cost analysis, I'm not sure we even need to vote on this in next week's meeting.
I think that Mitch and I talked about that earlier when I told him about the potential switch in the scope. I think there is value in, it's a recommendation that reflects the interest of this current board, and I would like that on record, because that's the jumping off point to the next step. Otherwise, I think we just continue to slide back into, well, which option are we in? Knowing that the option is going to shift, knowing that we are going to potentially look at other iterations. I think there is value in acknowledging in that final report what the preferred recommendation is. It can change. It's like the Kiwanda Corridor project. So I think there's value. It's up to your discretion whether you want to go that far.
I'm really looking forward to hearing. I got some great input from departments. And I'm looking
Oh,
forward to
microphone.
hearing. So, I'm just saying, I've got some great input from some departments. I don't know. I hear what you're saying, and
I think it's difficult because at some point we have to put our foot in, plant our flag in the sand so that we can walk past it and do the next thing. And I think that's what I'm hearing Rachel say is, we've spent a lot of time, we're very familiar with this information right now. If we don't, whether it's a formal vote or whether it's a discussion, I think that's maybe the question I would have, is if it needs to be a vote or if it's just a deliberation to hopefully a consensus. But one, because if we don't come back to this for another year and we have to go back and go, oh my God, remember we did that study? What were we thinking? Just saying, if we could jump off from, all the information we received at that time this was the best option. And then it's easier to say, you're right, that's what we thought. Let's just quickly see if that's still the same, as opposed to feeling like we have to go all the way back in. So I guess that's my thought. We've done the brain work. Let's close that door up so that we can start from there next time and not have to go back and start 3 steps back.
And additionally, just let's run out the next couple of months. If you make a decision to put option X in the report, and I agree, I don't think you need to vote on it next. I think you'll have the final document, and it is what it is. But it'll be on record that you talked about it and you asked them to put it in the report. So whether it's a vote, I don't think that really matters. You give direction next week. They wrap up the report early September. Then what? What I was thinking, just sitting in the meeting, is at next week's meeting, I would present next steps following the report, which would be, I'm going to come back to you and say, how do you want me to proceed? I'm guessing the first step at this is design an annex or figure out where an annex should be. And that's going to start moving forward. And so the next step in furthering that is hiring an entity to figure out the actual layout of an annex. So just affirming, I think we want to move with some pace on this. Funding obviously is a limiting factor, but if we want to resolve this, I think we need to keep moving it forward, and that would be the literal next steps, is we need to hire someone to keep this moving forward. So I don't see this sitting on a shelf for a year. But option 4 is absolutely going to change.
I was just going to, I don't know if it's going to screw up what you just said, but
Probably not.
Probably. Well, I feel like, again, one of the things that makes me uncomfortable with this, even though I like the work, I'm glad we did it all, it's all really important, is I feel like I'm being forced to say one thing if we vote on it next week. And what I'm hearing, though, is this is not really, even if we pick this X, Y, Z, it's not going to be that. So why are we even voting on it, other than saying we're voting on that? Like, if we decide we want to vote on something, we can at least make the decision to move forward and say, these departments are staying here, that gives us a baseline. And then the next conversation is, do we start looking at building an annex or buying an annex? And then when that happens, we do a space assessment, how much that can be, and then we're gonna be talking like who's going in that. But I feel like we're, like you said, we don't have the money to do all of this anyway, but at least this gives us a direction. We're saying, let's use your puzzle. I love that analogy. Let's figure out, these are the pieces. If we know that these are the pieces, let's figure out where they're going first. So I don't know. I don't know if it's effective for us to commit to a whole slew of stuff if we already know we're not gonna be doing it all. I feel like then we're backtracking, or maybe we're flip-flopping, or,
Well,
so I don't know.
sure. And I think option 4 at this point is the preferred option on my table because it requires the least amount of additional space outside of the courthouse. It's like, this is how we best shoehorn everybody in, and there's only 344 square feet difference between what we need and what we're able to pull out in that configuration. So that for me is why that is. Whether that's useful or not in a decision point, I don't know. I think it's a piece of the conversation, right? As we talk about cost, we say what's the most, if we end up going and looking for an annex, we can look for the smallest annex if we look at
Sure.
that option.
But then we still don't satisfy the circuit court request or requested thing. So it's like, that's still a component that it's gonna always have to still be dealing with.
Yep.
And so I still look option 6, but not for practicality reasons, because of the expense.
We'd all love to have.
I mean, that's,
option
yeah,
6,
if I had $100 million in my pocket,
right. And
I wouldn't be here. First of all, you guys would be on your own,
Right.
but,
right.
it would be some sort of option 6 where, everybody, you get a new car, you get a new house, you get a
Right.
new,
This is Oprah instead of
yeah.
Tillamook County.
So, but anyway,
Board of Commissioners, but it's not.
yeah, so I guess I still have, I'd like to hear more. I'm glad we're gonna wait till next week, and I'm not sure if that's my favorite or not. But
Yeah.
only because it still leaves, and I can feel Chris looking at me. That still leaves that, and the elephant in the room too is, if this is 3 years out, who are judges gonna be? 'Cause they're up for this reelection coming up. And that's just a practicality statement, not that I wish anybody to retire. But that's a lot of this is being, the bus is being driven by the needs, which are valid, of circuit court. And we just have so much space, and by statute, they don't have to give us any money to do it. And so we're in a pickle.
Yep.
And we're trying to figure out the solution to that pickle. And it's not a good pickle to eat, because there's really not any really good, none of these is perfect. So anyway, I guess I was looking forward to next week and sitting on this and chewing on it and getting more information. And I'm sure I'm gonna be talking to Chris about this. I'm sure he's gonna reach out to me, even though I'm not his liaison. But anyways, that's all I got, but.
Yeah, and I think there are alternatives that aren't captured here. You know, there, maybe Rachel said this is like one of 100 possibilities, because I'm thinking about circuit court, of course, and circuit court identified a need for future growth for a third courtroom, and it seems like if the commissioners leave this building, then this is the obvious third courtroom, but it could be shared with Justice Court, because Justice Court only meets twice a week. So, and I don't picture a time where we're going to need a third courtroom 5 days a week. So I think there are all kinds of options that aren't covered on here yet, and so there's the possibility of meeting more needs.
There's also a church for sale right over here. That would make a great small behavioral courthouse. That way, you're right. I thought it was really good. And that's less than $500,000. Not that that's chicken feed, but I'm saying these are the options. I'm just agreeing with you. I walked around today, and I just thought there are more options here that we do need to decide and move forward with something, to your point. And
Right, because if we're gonna solve this, if we're gonna be the Board of Commissioners that solves this, which is, I think, our goal, it's been on every Board of Commissioners' plate for the last 20 years, roughly? Yeah, so if we're gonna be the Board of Commissioners that solves it, we actually have to stick at some point and say, it will be imperfect, but it is where we need to go to move forward to solve this problem, to give our staff the elbow room they need and the workspace they need and the court space they need, and it's gonna be imperfect, because we can't afford perfect. So where are we going with imperfection? So I think that's something we also all just have to grapple with over the next week is we're gonna have to commit to something, and we're not gonna make all the people happy all the time. And it's what are the resources that we have, what are the factors involved, and what's the best we can do today, knowing that it isn't gonna be everything that we would all like it to be. So that's what I'll be chewing on over the next week. Okay, so we think we know where we're going, but it will be very fluid. That's what I heard today, is that it will be fluid. But we will have a further conversation next week. And we invite all department heads to talk with, send your official comments that you want all of us to have to Rachel, talk with anybody you want to about it, but have, official comments in one place so we all get all the same. Okay. That was it for our list of topics, if that's it for the space assessment.
Just want to thank you, Mitch and Lori, for joining us.
Yeah, thank you, DLR, sorry. we didn't have
Sorry,
much.
yeah.
And we did affirm that you want them at the meeting in case questions come up. Or,
I don't need them if you.
no, I thought.
Well, I kind of said that,
Okay.
but,
You were the one that said.
Okay.
well, that's two against one, no.
Okay, Mitch and Lori, you're off the hook for next Wednesday.
Okay, thank you all.
All right.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's it for our list. Commissioners, any weekly updates? What's going on?
Nothing for me. I want to, I take it back. I want to encourage everyone who works in the courthouse to join us for courthouse in-service training Friday morning. Whether or not you signed up for it already, everybody is welcome. Meet us in courtroom 102 at 8:15, and the courthouse will be closed to the public from 8 to 1 p.m.
Okay.
I don't have anything.
And everything. So I went to the Wheeler, remotely attended the Wheeler City Council meeting last night. They did talk about the Salmonberry, talked about the rails portion of it. So there's a lot of very animated conversation. On the 27th at 3, which is next Wednesday, I believe, the Port of Tillamook Bay will be taking up this conversation and potentially taking up their lease negotiation part of that. So my question was, do you know what we have on the board briefing for next week, and is it going to be the whole 2 hours?
You have an executive session at 2
Uh-huh.
that you must be at.
Yes, of course.
And after that, I think we have Frank, Debbie? Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I think that's it.
Okay. So I will just peel off as soon as I'm able. I would, because
Is there a remote option for that? Just curious.
yes, there is a remote option. Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like I would like to hear that conversation because it's very, very active and animated.
Oh, for sure.
Good,
Yeah.
For good reasons, right?
Oh, yeah.
I'm
Good arguments on both sides.
good arguments on both sides. And I think it'll be interesting to just see where the port takes that conversation. I think that will be helpful to know.
Oh, I agree. I've had a lot of people reach out to me about it.
Okay, perfect. Yep, and I've got a couple comments too, and I've made sure they know the decision maker is the port at this stage of the game, not us. So, okay, I think that was just the big thing that was on my fun meeting. Okay, Rachel, anything else for us? No? Anyone else in the room, anything for us?
Auditors will be back next week.
Auditors back next week. Okay, fun. All right.
Thank you guys for coming
Mm-hmm.
and online. But
No. Okay, anyone online, anything for us? Okay, not hearing anything. We will adjourn this board briefing at 3:18.
You're welcome. It's a good looking book.